Hi everyone, hope you had a nice day. So today we're going to be fertilizing the garlic. And if you planted garlic last fall, it's a great time to fertilize them right now, right before the bulbs start to swell or during the bulb formation. Usually it's around early May, so you want to get them fertilized by mid-May. So we'll be using vermisteros worm castings to feed the soil in our garlic. And what's great about using worm castings is that it contains essential micro and macronutrients, beneficial microbes, fungi, beneficial nematodes. Also, it is comprised of about 50% humus, which is great because that gives the quality of worm castings to be able to retain moisture, nutrients, provide homes for microbes in the soil. So when I apply the worm castings, I usually use it as a side dressing or top dressing. And you can lightly scratch it in if you like. You don't have to. Just make sure that the soil is moist and that you water it in after you apply them. That way all the nutrients, all the beneficial microbes and fungi will get washed into the soil. If you have a layer of mulch, make sure to move that aside. That way you can put your worm castings down. So what I do is I usually broadcast it in between the garlic, or just simply get a cup or a container and just sprinkle it down in the middle. So just like that. So I'm just sprinkling about 1/8 of an inch, and then you can just scratch it in, and the soil is moist because it rained a couple of days ago. So another way to do it is you can also just get a small handful and you can just kind of put it down right in between the two, whatever's easier for you. I find it easier to just broadcast it throughout a garden bed and just kind of sprinkle it all the way through, and then I water it in. The neighbor's mowing the lawn, so it's pretty loud. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So you can see where I put the worm castings in between the garlic. So this bed is done. I do have a few more to fertilize. Right over this way. So we have some elephant garlic here. Some of them are volunteer plants, and the rest are called Mount Hood, a hardneck variety. Also have a couple of containers that I need to get to, so we'll do that next. So when you're using worm castings for new beds, the recommendation is about 1 pound, which is this amount per square foot, or 10 pounds per 10 square foot for new beds. If you have an established bed, then you don't really need to add that much. Now this is a 30-gallon fabric pot, and so I'm going to go ahead and add about 1 pound of worm castings. This one has a diameter of at least 24 inches. And that'll feed this garlic for the rest of the season. And again, I removed the mulch. You can always put your mulch back after you fertilize, and of course after you water that in first. This garlic variety is called Mount Hood. It is a hardneck variety, very big bulbs and cloves. So excited to harvest these this year. So I try not to wet the leaves because the plants become more susceptible to diseases. So just try to water as closely as you can to the soil level. All right, I'm going to circle back again. So after you apply your fertilizer, make sure to water it in, get those nutrients washed down into the soil. And after that, on average, you can water about once a week, unless there is a drought. Garlic does not like wet or soggy soil. It can cause them to rot. Now, if you are growing in containers, the soil will dry up quicker and you might need to water more often. So maybe about every 3 to 5 days. And one way to test the soil if it is really dry is by sticking your finger in the dirt about an inch down. And if your finger comes out really dry, then go ahead and lightly water. The time to stop watering is usually 2 to 4 weeks before harvest time, or when the lowest leaves start to turn yellow or brown. Depending on where you live, you may be harvesting your garlic between June and August. We normally harvest ours in mid-July, or when about a third of the leaves are tan or brown. Another thing I wanted to mention is to keep your garden beds weed-free. They will compete with garlic, since garlic is a heavy feeder. Remember, garlic is a heavy feeder and require a fertilizer high in nitrogen, and worm castings will provide that, but in a slow release form so they won't burn your plants. If you're interested in trying out worm castings, make sure to check out vermistera.com. I will provide the link in the description box of this video, and for a savings of 10%, use code LEARN2GROW. Alright everyone, I'm going to get going and get to the rest of the garlic in the ground, and I apologize for the noise. My neighbor's still mowing his lawn, so I'm going to just go ahead and wrap this up. But also just want to remind you that if you are growing garlic in containers or any plants in containers, it's a good idea to amend your soil at least about every 2 to 3 weeks. Now with worm castings, you can get away a little bit longer, about 3 to 4 weeks, because the nutrients are encased in a mucous membrane, so they are slowly released over time. But also when you are watering container plants, the nutrients do get washed away, so it's a good idea to make sure that you are consistently feeding the soil every 3 to 4 weeks with worm castings. Now for the in-run garlic, I usually just do this fertilization and I don't fertilize the rest of the season. Usually my initial feeding is at planting time in the fall, and then I feed them again in the spring around this time. Now if you do notice that the leaves or the tips of the leaves are starting to turn yellow, that's a good sign for you to feed the soil again. So as long as your soil is healthy, they will produce healthy plants. So again, the best thing to do is to build your soil's health. So you want to amend the soil at planting time, which is going to be this fall. So you want to make sure that you add enough nutrients in there, compost and worm castings, and that'll feed your plants in the long run. So as long as your plants are all green and are looking healthy, you're good to go. And you'll be harvesting sometime in July, maybe earlier if you live in a warm climate. Thank you so much for joining me today, everyone. Have a great day and happy gardening.